All right, I think we can go ahead and get started. Thank you so much to everybody that's joining us today. My name is Sean O'Laughlin. I work in the education department here at GSA, and we're happy to bring this webinar to you about unannounced SPS audits. This presentation was pre-recorded by Guy Ewing and I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit lost. This was pre-recorded by Guy Ewing and Keiko Pasterczyk, and we have both of them on this webinar with us to answer any questions you may have. We will play this presentation, and then we will do the question and answer session afterwards. We also have Chris Weeks from Program Integrity here to also help answer some of those questions you guys may have. This presentation is being recorded, so if you can't stay for the whole thing, if you need to leave, or if you want to review it and watch it again later or share it with anyone that missed it, we will be recording it and we will send out the video of this to everyone who registered. So even if someone had registered and they weren't able to attend, they'll be able to get that recording afterwards within a week or so. So be on the lookout for that. If you have any questions that you want us to address at the end of the presentation, please go ahead and type them into the chat box in the bottom right corner of your screen, and we'll store those questions off to the side, and then we'll go through them one by one after the presentation is over. And again, if you want to reach out to any of these speakers after the fact with any questions that come up later, we will make their contact information available to you after in the follow-up email. So again, thank you so much. We really appreciate you joining us, and I'm going to go ahead and just start this presentation.
All right. Today's webinar is an introduction to unannounced seafood processing standard audits. My name is Guy Ewing, and I'm presenting this on behalf of Program Integrity at GSA. Why unannounced? Unannounced audits for food companies are required for many third-party certification audits. Other standards require unannounced audits, and GSA SPS standard is also required by GFSI to conduct unannounced audits. Unannounced audits help demonstrate compliance and provide confidence to all stakeholders that your manufacturing sites are operating on the same GMP level day to day, shift to shift, for every day of your organization's manufacturing and distributing food products. Unannounced audits are not new to the food industry. In fact, regulatory audits are almost always unannounced. So the food industry should not be reluctant to adopt unannounced third-party audits. Typically, regulatory audits such as FDA are always unannounced. The unannounced audit requirement is a GFSI requirement, and it states that the certification program owner shall ensure that certification bodies perform at a minimum, and this is for scopes, several different scopes, but the scopes relevant to the SPS standard would be C2 and E scope, and GFSI requires one unannounced audit for every 3 years for each certified organization. One unannounced audit every 3 years for each certified organization. GSA also conducts from time to time other unannounced or other types of unannounced audits. For example, re-audits or short noticed or unannounced audits shall also be conducted at Global Seafood Alliance at certification body discretion where facility compliance concerns arise. So it's other types of unannounced audits may be conducted by GSA as well. Timing of unannounced audits. Unannounced audits Unannounced audits shall be planned and conducted by the certification body. Initial unannounced audit years shall be confirmed during recertification application process, and requirements shall be agreed upon. And at least 90 calendar days prior to certificate expiration date, the CB shall give notice to the facility that an unannounced audit is pending and specify a 60-day window in which the unannounced audit shall occur. All pre-audit communications shall cease within 80 calendar days prior to the certificate expiration date. And it should be noted here that during the notification of the CB notification of unannounced audits, they will communicate to the facility that they must have adequate personnel available during normal business operating hours within the 60-day window stipulated for the audit. If unforeseen circumstances require additional communication within this time frame, the ability to conduct a recertification audit before the facility expiration date may be impacted, and all such communication shall be copied to GSA program integrity. Restrictions on unannounced audit. Typically, initial audits of new facilities shall not be unannounced. Unannounced audits must not take place on weekends or holy or religious days or official holidays in the region where the facility is located. For seasonal facilities, the 60-day window, 60-day audit window may be reduced at the discretion of the CB to accommodate seasonal variations. And remote audits do not qualify for unannounced audits. In other words, unannounced audits must be, the auditor must be in person to conduct the audit. And finally, unannounced audits shall be conducted to the standard version to which the facility applied. GFSI Technical Committee did a ruling in January 2021, which clarified the meaning and definition of unannounced audits. Sites will not have any prior notification before their visit, their audit visit. There is no allowance for any site to get a prior notification, as this would change the audit from unannounced to announced. There is a blackout period allowed. The facility may elect to request a blackout period of a maximum of 2 weeks. Now, this blackout period is to accommodate shutdown periods, non-production days, or annual maintenance that the facility might have to undertake. So the facility may elect to request a blackout period of 2 weeks, 14 calendar days, within the 60-day window to accommodate the shutdown period, non-production days, annual maintenance that the facility might have to undertake. Such a request by the facility should be made within 10 calendar days of the notice by the CB as described. Such blackout period must be agreed upon by the CB and the facility. There's some operational criteria for unannounced audits. First of all, if the facility denies the CB auditor access to the site, the facility certificate may be suspended, withdrawn at the discretion of the CB. Auditors shall be trained by the CBs in unannounced audit protocols. And the certification and no certification decision by the CB shall also be determined in a similar manner as that of announced audits. So the certification and no certification decisions are not different for announced or unannounced audits. Unannounced audits shall start immediately upon the arrival of the CB auditor at the facility without delay. Delays extending beyond 30 minutes of auditor arrival on site may be grounds for cancellation of the unannounced audit. This may impact the GFSI standing of the audit. Site inspection by the CB auditor shall start immediately after the opening meeting. One thing to consider is that although the recertification audit or certification audit may take place over a period of 3 days as an unannounced audit, in reality, the audit is only unannounced on the first day. Obviously, subsequent days, the facility is aware that the auditor is there, but there are certain requirements that the auditor must follow on day one. Certain audit functions that must be done on day one, including auditing the physical infrastructure with associated HACCP and food safety plans, and the GMPs and the SSOPs, Standard Sanitation Operating Procedures. Also on day one, selection of the lots will be done for the traceability tests. On day one, also, worker interviews will be done, and selection of product samples to be drawn for testing will also be done on day one. So the auditor has specific items to cover on the first day of the unannounced audit. Audit reports and certification. Issues of non-conformities, corrected action review, and non-conformity closures are handled similar to that of an announced audit as in CB requirements document. Audit reports and certificates issued by CBs following a successful unannounced audit must be clearly identified that the audit was unannounced. Limited scope, supplemental, or re-audits necessitated based on results of unannounced audits shall be announced unless otherwise specified by GSA. So finally, the unannounced audit client profile should include all the information needed for the auditor to easily locate the plant and access the plant, including driving times or flights, any special flight considerations, ferries that must be taken in the case of transport to an island for the audit, or any other special travel requirements should be noted by the CB. So, and then also the species and the harvest cycle should also be noted because sometimes there are seasonal issues with the harvest cycles, and certainly we want to make sure that product is being processed during the unannounced audit. The unannounced audit implementation shall be covered by Keiko, and that will include the timeline for the implementing unannounced audit protocols. Thank you.
Thank you, Guy. So this is Keiko presenting. I'm Director of Certification Operations. I just want to go over the timeline of this unannounced audit that is coming up. So we wanted to do the communication this year, 2022, just to make sure everybody's aware of the requirements and what we need to do and what's expected in next 3 years. So the customer who has expiration starting January 2023, we will start reaching out to those facilities in July. So those customers will need to start having unannounced audit. And this is a mandate to have this next year, 2023. Then the following year on 2024, whoever that some reason cannot have the unannounced audit conducted in 2023, we will have a close communication with the facility, and then case by case, we will possibly let that facility to have the unannounced audit in 2024. But we will like to have everybody to have the unannounced audit in 2023 if possible. So the next slide, I would like to show everybody how this will work. So if this is a January expiration date of expiration of 2023, we will start having a contact. So our BAP specialist, whoever that is in charge of your facility, will start contacting 6 months ahead of the expiration date. So month 1, BAP specialists will contact the customers and let them know that you guys are ready to start the process of certification. From there, customer has to complete the application form and submit the audit fee payment to us. So sooner you send that application form and the audit fee payment, we will be able to allocate your facility to notify the CBs to say, they're ready to contact with you and then make appointment with the CBs to schedule an audit. So please do that as soon as you can, so that way you have 2 months to submit the forms, but sooner that you send it out, the sooner we allocate the this to the CBs, and then you'll be able to schedule the audit dates. So it will not be the exact date, as you know, this is announced audit, but CB will contact to let you know the 6-day window when they possibly will be scheduling the audit. So say it's gonna be the month 3 to 4, they will schedule the audit to say, we're coming this 60 days, but the customer will have to let CB know 10-day blackout day, whether QA manager is not available at that time because that person is on vacations, or production has a shutdown day because you guys have to do full cleaning. Whatever the reason that you have those 2 weeks, 10 days, business days, please let the CB know right away, so that way they will not show up that day. But other than that, those between that 60-day window, the CB will give it to you. They can show up anytime, those durations. Then once that's done, then CB will conduct the audits during that 6-day minus the 10-day blackout day. Then after the 10-day from the audit end date, BAP specialist will send the program fee invoice to the customers. And then again, please make a payment as soon as possible on the program fee payment. Once the CB make the decisions on the certifications, they have just roughly about 60 days to make a decisions on their certification decisions. Once we have the program fee payment comes in, the certs comes in from the CBs, we will be able to get that cert out to you right away. So this is the 6 months timeline of what to expect. So hopefully this will help to schedule your plan and to make sure that you have everything to come in for the payment and whatnot. So the easy way to do this is the BAP specialist that needs to take action is in light blue. Anytime that the dark blue, the customer has to take actions. Then in green, that's when CB, whoever is that you are assigned, will be taking action to contact and then conduct the audit. So that's a timeline of the what to expect. So hopefully this will be helpful for you guys. But if you have any questions, we can always, we'll be happy to answer any questions. So thank you. And then hopefully this will help.
All right. I hope you guys got what you needed out of that, but it looks like we do have a few questions coming in to the chat. So thank you guys for that. I'm going to go ahead and see if I can get these on the question board. Keiko, do you want to take this first question? Let me see if I can publish this. There we go.
Yes, I can. Thank you, Sean. So first question looks like, are we going to be able to choose the CB? So as you know, we do have a preferred CB that you let us know. The specialist will know who you prefer to have. We try to accommodate the CBs that you preferred, but sometimes we have to make a change to those auditors and CBs because of the requirements that we have. We may not be able to assign to the CB that you would like to have. So that will depend on our decisions to make who we decide to allocate. So that might not be the exact same CB that you have used before.
Okay, kind of a similar question, but Lewis asked, are we going to be able to choose the CB? I'm guessing. Okay, I'll let you.
Yeah, they will not be able, they can let us know the preferred CBs during the application time, but we may not be able to allocate to that CBs.
Blackout days. This is just looking for some clarification. It looks like blackout days in the presentation was 14. Now I see a 10-day period. What is a correct period for that?
So the blackout day is 14 days calendar days, 10 business days. So that's 2 weeks total. Because the unannounced audit will not happen on the weekends or holiday time.
Okay.
I can add to that.
Yeah.
The 10-day, there's a 10-day in there, and that basically the 10-day is that the request has to be made by the facility within 10 days of being first notified by the receiving notice by the CB that the unannounced audit. So after you receive notice from the CB that the unannounced audit is pending, then you have 10 calendar days to notify the CB with the 14 calendar days for the blackout period.
Chris, we actually had someone else asking about that. Is the do those days need to be consecutive?
We do not specify that those days have to be consecutive, and if we think about what goes on in processing plants and various shutdowns and so forth, basically it makes sense that they would not have to be consecutive.
All right, before I go back to the next question, I saw that someone did ask if this was recorded and will be available. Yes, it has been recorded. It's continuing to be recorded, and we are going to send out the recording of this to everyone that registered. So if you miss some, it will be available to you. So let's see. Go back to Jen's question. How will the unannounced audits be confirmed during the application? Will the portal be amended so that the facility can select the unannounced audit?
Okay, I can take that one. So during the application form, when you submit the application to our specialist, please make sure that you prefer to get that unannounced audit done. So then they'll make sure to let our CB department know, and then that will notify our CBs, whoever that will be assigned to you, to make sure that they know that your facility will be coming in as an unannounced audit.
One quick one. Will announced audits happen every year?
Nope, announced audit is required to have every 3 years. So if you have an announced audit done next year in 2023, then you do not have to get that done until at least the requirements does not start for the next one till 2025.
Thank you, Keiko.
Sure.
Okay. Let's see, Sonia. Is it part of the prior communication this is about scheduling? How are you going to choose the time the auditor will come into the facility? And I believe, Keiko, you went over this in your presentation, but you may need to just reiterate.
part of the prior communication facility schedule, how are you going to choose the time the auditor will come into the facility? So the auditor, so the CB will contact you prior as soon as the assignment comes in. Then they will give you a 60-day calendar days that they are possibly showing up. So you will need to let them know within 10 days to which 10-day blackout day is. Then you would need to work with them to make sure that those 60 days is there, works, but also the 10 days, that blackout day works for the CBs as well.
Okay, this is a great question. Is this over and above regularly announced audits, or is it in lieu of announced audits in the year that it occurs? Anyone?
Yeah, this is a requirement by GFSI that anybody that gets certified to the Seafood Processing Standard, SPS, has to have an unannounced audit once every 3 years. So it's not over and above anymore. It's a GFSI requirement across the board to all schemes.
Thanks, Chris. So I see there's a couple questions here that look like they're very specific to certain facilities. For example, my certificate expires on this date or whatever. I'm going to hold off on some of those because they probably don't apply to everybody. But we, like I said, will send out the contact information for everyone here, for all of the speakers here, so you can kind of work with someone one-on-one on your specific situation. But I want to make sure I get to the questions that more people may have that are a little less specific to a certain facility. So is this also applied to farm, hatchery, and feed mills, or is it just for seafood processing plants?
This is for SPS only. It's a GFSI requirement.
All right. Chris or Keiko, can you, for Jennifer, explain what was meant by the no announcement prior to audit? She said this is confusing considering the 90-day, 60-day, 80-day timelines.
Yeah, I'll take that one. So the requirement is that the CB has to reach out before 90 days of the expiration date. So ideally, the CB would reach out, providing, we've moved the initial notice a month out. So we've moved the initial notice out from 5 months to 6 months. So therefore, the process needs, knowing that these unannounced audits are going to be coming up, the process needs to move forward as quickly as possible. Certainly, to accommodate the facilities as well. So the requirement is that the CB will reach out to the facility before the 90-day expiration, 90 days prior to expiration. So ideally, it would be 90, 100, 120 to give plenty of room in here. The 80-day timeline is communications have to stop at some point between the CB and the facility for this to be truly unannounced. There are some exceptions to this. If there are unforeseen examples or circumstances where communication has to be made between a facility and a CB, we're just required to CC program integrity so that we can monitor the situation to ensure that the unannounced audit is not given away in such communication. But that 80-day basically is the time clock that says, okay, no more communication, no more preparing, getting the facility prepared, because anything beyond that, he starts running into getting close to the audit date. I hope that helps.
Thanks, Chris. And if you need a little more clarification on that, I highly recommend you reach out to someone in BAP that can help you kind of sort that out if you need a little more explanation. This question, processing plant, farm, hatchery audits can no longer be merged. I believe we've kind of clarified that a little bit because I think, from what I understand, this is going to be separate from your normal audit. Is that correct, Chris or Keiko?
Yeah, that's correct. Basically, if for the year unannounced audit, there has to be no idea of when the auditor is going to show up. Therefore, by kind of pooling hatchery and audits and farm audits with an SPS audit, obviously, if the hatchery audit and the farm audits were scheduled within a week's time, there's no way that SPS, an unannounced audit SPS, could be scheduled in that grouping of that cluster, just because it would not be unannounced. That it would narrow the 60-day time window down to just a couple weeks, and that would not be accepted by GFSI.
So I think this question, what happens if an unannounced audit occurs in a center that is in the fallow period? This seems like it's referring to a farm, but remember that the unannounced audits are only associated with the seafood processing standard. Chris, was there any situation in which this would apply to unannounced audits?
There is a seasonal aspect of seafood processing that goes on. And if there is seasonal production going on in the plant, the CB has the opportunity to reduce that 60-day window to fit the needs of that seasonal process.
Okay. So if a facility, again, this is another one that's specific to a specific facility. I'm not going to do too many of these, but if anyone doesn't operate on Fridays, they can just put that on their form, what their schedule is, correct?
Well, Sophia, let me first say congratulations on not never having to work on Fridays.
Yeah.
With that said, if you're not in operation, you'll just have to notify the CB accordingly, and that starts to narrow down the window a bit. But hey, if you're not operating, you're not operating. If the plant is shut down, it's shut down. So yeah, there would I do not see that we would require facilities to adjust their normal operating procedures to accommodate a day that they are typically out.
Is the GFSI unannounced audit specifically for BAP only, or all GFSI programs?
It's for all GFSI, so it's for the SPS, so the seafood processing standard, and we should probably be clear about this. SPS is benchmarked by GFSI. Therefore, all audits that get done to the SPS need to meet GFSI requirements. We know that remote audit is a little bit of a special circumstance, extenuating circumstance, and that's covered in under IFID3 type situation. But no, so if you're getting a seafood processing audit, then you fit within the GFSI requirements, and therefore, and whether it's wild only, farmed only, or wild plus farmed only, you still would fall under this requirement. None of the farm standards fall under this requirement.
All right, Chris, it looks like there's still some confusion around the blackout periods. What is the time period that we will have to communicate our blackout period once we receive the initial email?
Right. So the initial notice comes from the CB no later than 90 days prior to the expiration. So ideally it would occur prior to 90 days before the expiration date. The facility then has 10 days. Once they receive that notice, the facility has 10 days to get back to the CB saying, these are my blackout dates. And it's that blackout dates are up to 14 days.
So if someone is in the application process, are they going to expect an unannounced audit, or does that not happen until after the application is submitted?
Keiko, you want to take this one?
Yeah, we prefer to obviously have that application information come in right away. But if that is in application the process, and if you have not submitted to the BAP specialist, that's fine. If you already have submitted it and it's only been a few days, then please reach out to the specialist right away. we can reach back out to CBs if we have already allocated to the CBs, but if it's not, we can make that change to the unannounced audit.
Keiko, while I have you here, this is probably a good question for you. Is there any opportunity to use other languages in the application process?
Right now, I do not believe we have any option to fill out the applications in any foreign language other than English.
And this question may also, I don't know if this also has to do with during the audit or the unannounced audit setup or anything like that, but I know that a lot of, most of the BAP program, a lot of the paperwork needs to be done in English, correct?
Yeah, so if the customer would like to have a audits conducted in Spanish or other language, the specific language that is required, some CB may able to accommodate. I know some countries and some areas that they speak some English but not fluently, and then they request, and then some CB can accommodate. So please, when the CB reach out to you, please let them know or let us know ahead of time, so that way we can try our best to assign that CBs who can accommodate your request.
Thank you.
Sure.
Can you clarify, you or Chris or Guy, if the social component is also part of the announced audit?
Yeah, Matthew, that's a great question. So if you are getting an enhanced social audit, and it's, when some facilities are on an annual basis, then the enhanced social audit has to occur during the normal audit, but it's done by an APSCA CSCA registered auditor. So yes, the short answer is yes, the social component would be part of the unannounced audit.
Let me see, we just have a few questions left. Again, if I don't get to your question, it's likely because it was a little more specific to a single facility. So, I would recommend that you contact the presenters here to kind of work through your specific questions. Unannounced audits, are they carried out before the fee payment or updates in the portal? Maybe a Keiko question.
So unannounced audit will not be assigned to the CBs until the application forms and the audit fee payment comes into us. So as I mentioned, that please submit those two, the application form and the audit fee payment right away. As soon as you have the forms coming to us, then we can allocate that to CBs, your job to CBs. So please make sure to do both right away. Otherwise, the audit will not happen.
All right, we have just a few questions left. I'm going to publish Jennifer's. It's kind of a long one, but I'm just going to read the end here. It's talking about lack of auditor availability that we've seen in the past 2 years, she mentions. Does BAP foresee any issues meeting these timelines as opposed to other GFSI benchmark standards that don't require reapplication or repayment?
It's really hard to foresee on this. Coming from a program integrity standpoint, we know things pop up. We were willing to work with facilities on a case-by-case basis as needed. Guy or Keiko, do you have anything to add on this?
We're trying to recruit as much as auditors we can, and we are totally aware of some area that we are in need of more auditors. So we'll try to do our best. But again, the application form comes in sooner, and then also the payment comes in earlier is important. But also, this is something that we're looking into. Start to have the process starting 1 year ahead of the expiration date. That's something that we're looking into in the future, near future. So that should help with auditors' availability and capability and whatnot with the CBs. So hopefully that will help with all this audits coming up in the future.
Keiko, stay on for 1 second. Is there any additional cost to the facility for unannounced audits?
Nope, there's no additional cost. This is exact same as SPS audit. It's just gonna be unannounced audit versus announced audit.
Okay, so that is, what's this last one? Does the unannounced audit replace a normal audit? Not sure if this was explained. We did go over that. The unannounced audit is not a replacement, but Chris, do you want to expand on
Actually,
that?
yes, the unannounced audit is a replacement.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so every facility has to have a annual audit on site or in this or a hybrid type approach. So it's an annual audit. The unannounced audit is just one of the annual audits. Every 3 years has to be unannounced. So there'll be two for the 3-year period. There could be 2 announced audits and then 1 announced audit. But it's got to be every third year. Now, some facilities might elect to do an unannounced audit every year, and they're more than welcome to do that as well.
Thanks, Chris. I'm sorry about that confusion. I'm going to just do one more question here, and then I think the other ones, is this, unless this one is a little bit more broad. Yeah, we'll do 2 more questions. Let's do this one. If a company wants to group their audits together and is willing to accept unannounced audits for their plant and farms, would this be allowed?
I don't see any reason why not. That certainly is a facility priority. We do not, for all the farms and hatcheries, we certainly would welcome unannounced audits as well. And I see one in the chat that is repeated a couple of times from Grace Charlton, I believe, that facilities have unannounced audits happening throughout the year. What happens if you turn it up in the middle of an ongoing audit?
Yeah, that has come up a couple of times.
Yeah, that's a really good question. The auditor is showing up, and if the auditor is turned away and not allowed to conduct an audit, then that is subject to cancellation of the audit. That essentially it starts to put the facility into risk of not achieving their certification before the expiration date. There are certain cases where, extenuating circumstances, ideally you would try to accommodate. If you couldn't accommodate, you would notify the auditor. The auditor would contact the CB, and then the CB would have to make a determine whether to cancel the audit or to reschedule the audit. If it's rescheduled, it is no longer unannounced. So just keep that in mind. So, these types of things are going to pop up. We know that, and we're, trying to get ahead of the game. Ideally, if that's going to be the case, then you're going to have to notify the auditor and the CB. Ideally, though, you would try to accommodate that audit.
Thanks, Chris. All right, I was going to end it there, but Abdul just submitted a question that I think might be going around in some other people's heads. So I just want to finish off. This is going to be the last question for this webinar. If at the time of the audit is announced, if it happens when you're not processing BAP product, should they continue to audit or reschedule or re-audit?
Abdul, that's a great question. According to SPS, you would have to be processing one of either a wild or a farmed species. So the scope of SPS, obviously, there are no exclusions within an SPS audit. That means all parts of the facility are essentially open for inspection. Now, when a facility does apply, they can go to apply in terms of wild only, farmed only, or wild plus farmed. So let's say the auditor shows up and they're doing farm species only, and you had applied for wild. Yeah, that certainly would be a special case. And if that's the case, I really stress to notify the CB up front, and probably include BAP on there so that we have an understanding of what could occur.
All right. So I know we didn't get to every single question, but I really want to thank everybody for joining us. And we have a list, we have a record of these questions, so we'll be able to go through them and try and address as many as we can. Again, I highly recommend if your question didn't get answered, or if it comes up later on, that you contact either Chris, Guy, or Keiko, or myself. I can help guide you to whoever would be most helpful to answer your question. But you may have a more specific case by case question that they can help you work through. So we'll make sure that you have access to those people. But like I said in the beginning, this presentation, along with the Q&A session, has also been recorded. We're going to send that recording out to everyone who registered for this webinar within the next week. So you'll have that available to you. And with that, I guess I just want to once again thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you all soon.